Welcome to the 18th week of this year's In Times Like These recap. Now, let's get into this. Starting with Isabel Torres, who arrives at the courthouse with her daughter Yulisa. As the two meet with Nichelle, Isabel walks off and bumps into Isidore Russo. When Isidore asks Isabel how she feels about her husband Devante standing trial for taking the life of his sister Elvira Russo, Isabel answers that she's not looking forward to taking the stand, but is ready to do her part in making Devante pay for all of his crimes. As soon as Isabel assures Isidore that Devante will pay for what he took from the Russos, she walks off, running into Devante and his lawyer, Harley Drake. Devante tells his wife that she doesn't want to go against him. Unfazed, Isabel tells Devante that since he took Elvira's life, he'll have to face the consequences. When Isabel walks off, Harley pleads with Devante not to embarrass Isabel in front of the whole town and their children. Devante tells his lawyer that Isabel is bringing it on herself. Heidi Russo walks up to Quinlan Franklin, discussing her and Pacho's plan to infiltrate Adaku Danjuma's organization. Heidi asks Quinlan if she feels proud knowing that he has to risk his life to spare hers. Quinlan tells Heidi that she feels relieved knowing that they can take down the entire Danjuma organization, feeling like her younger brother Zeke will finally be free of a life of crime. Heidi points out that even if Adaku is taken down, Zeke can still find other ways to get himself into trouble. Quinlan tells Heidi how Zeke would have learned his lesson after all of this. Heidi replies by reminding Quinlan that Zeke didn't learn when he was arrested, feeling like if he did, then her son wouldn't have almost lost his life. Even though Quinlan feels sorry for Max, she reminds Heidi that Max made his choices, which angers Heidi. Suddenly, Gianni walks up to them, demanding that Heidi leave Quinlan alone. As they sit down, the Russos notice Vivian Jones entering into the courtroom. Pacho Torres arrives at Adaku's office at Global News Press, asking to be an associate of her organization. Adaku is skeptical, wondering if Devante put him up to this. Playing dumb, Pacho questions what his father has to do with his request. The response which Adaku gives is that she wants honesty, telling Pacho that she doesn't like being lied to. Pacho claims that he's not lying, asking Adaku one more time if she's willing to work with him. Ben Russo has fallen off the wagon again in his condo and begins hallucinating his late Aunt Elvira, encourages her nephew to sober up, drive over to the courthouse, and speak the truth along with her diary. He tells Elvira that he can't just hand over the diary. Elvira gives Ben permission, telling him that she doesn't need it anymore. Ben tells Elvira that he needs her, telling his aunt how much he missed her. She tells Ben how much she misses him too, but tells him that he doesn't need a diary to feel closer to her, but to remember how much she loved him. Elvira goes on to state that he must do whatever it takes to make sure Devante doesn't get away with what he did. Just as Elvira tells Ben how much she loves him, she assures her nephew that he'll never forget her, disappearing. As soon as Ben wakes up and finds that Elvira is gone, he breaks down. Wanda Mitchell is brought to the stand, speaks about her friendship with Elvira and how Elvira confessed to cheating on Udell with Devante. When Harley cross-examines her, she paints Wanda as an uncredible witness and Elvira as a liar. Ben is brought to the stand, explaining what he remembers, and Harley tries to paint him as an uncredible witness because of his battle with addiction. Isabel is brought to the stand, sharing her belief in Devante's guilt. When Harley cross-examines Isabel, she gets Isabel to confess that she not only cheated on Devante with Isidore, but that she also terminated the pregnancy after Isidore got her pregnant. Enraged, Isabel tells the entire courtroom that she'll never get to know her own baby because she held on to a man who was a liar, adulterer, and a monster. The judge decides to continue court for a later date. Then Isabel is confronted by her kids as Yulisa asks her mother how she could terminate the pregnancy. Nichelle and Pacho defend their mother. Yet Yulisa is troubled at the thought that both of her parents have taken the lives of innocent people, scolding her mother for taking the life of her own child. This causes Nichelle and Yulisa to go back and forth. Isabel is unable to deal with the argument, then rushes off. Pacho finds his mother crying and tries to comfort her by stating that he understands why she terminated her pregnancy. As for Isabel, she tells her son that terminating her pregnancy is something that she'll always regret, crying into his arms. Isidore, shocked by Isabel's confession, walks off. Vivian approaches the family at a bad time since Clarice is angered that Isabel got rid of Isidore's baby. Vivian tries telling the Russos that she came to support them. The Russos appreciate her support, except for Clarice, who feels like Vivian is seeking something from them. Lorenzo and the Russos don't buy into Clarice's theory, once again, thanking Vivian for supporting them. As the Russos walk off, Vivian tells herself that everything the Russos have is her birthright. Devante congratulates Harley for her work so far, but she tells Devante how sick she feels, forcing Isabel to admit to the entire town of Valley Park about her most intimate, difficult decision. As for Devante, he has no regrets, going on about how glad he is that Isabel got rid of her child with Isidore. Sick of the sight of Devante, she walks away from him. As Terry Burke tries to sneak out of the courtroom, Devante catches her. He proceeds to thank Terry for stopping by, expressing how he's certain that the trial will work out for his favor. Ben approaches Finnegan Burke, informing the police commissioner that he'll hand him Elvira's diary. When Finnegan reminds Ben that he never explained how he got the diary, Ben reveals that Terry held on to it this whole time. Confused, Finnegan questions why his ex-wife was in possession of Elvira's diary. Ben tells Finnegan that if he takes the time to read it, then he'll figure out why. Adaku meets with Devante at Theodosius's palace, asking if he told Pacho about their connection. Devante assures Adaku that he hasn't, asking her why she wants to know. Not telling him about Pacho's request, Adaku asks Devante if he'll train Pacho up to work beside her if Devante goes to prison. Devante tells Adaku to let him worry about that. When Isabel arrives at the Russo estate after spending the night at the hotel, Clarice tells Isabel that she's no longer welcomed at her house because she terminated the pregnancy after she and Isidore conceived a child. Clarice goes on to question how Isabel could hate Isidore that much, especially after all he had done for her. Isabel assures Clarice that she doesn't hate Isidore. As soon as Clarice compares Isabel to Devante, Isabel defends herself. Unwilling to listen to Isabel's point of view, Clarice tells Isabel that she wants her to stay away from Isidore. At Theodosius's palace, Isidore meets with Harley, asking how long she knew about Isabel terminating the pregnancy. When she assures him that she never knew throughout their entire marriage, Isidore goes on to scold Harley for the way she spoke to Isabel in court. She tells her ex-husband how she thought he would be more angry at Isabel for not carrying his child. Harley goes on to state how she's even more surprised that Isidore hasn't thanked her for carrying his only child to term. Isidore tells Harley that giving birth to Alan was her duty as a wife. In disbelief, Harley reminds Isidore that her job was to be his wife, not his baby-making machine. She goes on to notice that Isidore isn't angry at Isabel, but brokenhearted since the only woman he ever loved refused to carry his child. Isidore warns Harley that if she ever hurts Isabel the way that she did, then he'll make sure she suffers more than she did when she lost custody of Alan. Yulissa tells her friend, Vanessa Dorval, how thankful she is that Vanessa and her family allowed her to stay the night. She goes on to state how she's unwilling to stay with Isabel after her confession. Even though Vanessa understands her friend's heartache, she tries to tell Yulissa that Devante refuses to own up to his choices, while Isabel expressed regret over hers. She goes on to remind Yulissa that she's the one who can point her family to Jesus, encouraging her not to abandon any of them. Vanessa's father, Jeremiah, enters the living room, telling the girls that they have a visitor. When Jeremiah walks off, they're shocked to see Max Russo after he seemed to have been checked out of rehab. Can't get enough of the crazy world of In Times Like These? Then, treat yourself to a binge watch of In Times Like These. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You're not ready for what's to come, but tune in anyway.